Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever prayed for something with all your heart only to feel like nothing is happening? Maybe you asked for success, a breakthrough, or a new opportunity, but instead you are met with delay, struggle, or even rejection. It's in these moments we start questioning, is God even listening? But here's the truth. God is not ignoring you. He is preparing you. God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our expectations. We often pray for things with a sense of urgency, expecting an immediate answer, but God operates on a different schedule. He sees the bigger picture, the past, present, and future, all at once. While we are limited by our current perspective, He understands what is truly best for us and when we are ready to receive it. Many times people feel frustrated when their prayers seem unanswered. But in reality, God is working behind the scenes. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen. It only means that the timing isn't right. When we rush ahead of God, we often end up in situations we are not prepared for. There are countless examples in life where getting something too soon leads to failure. Imagine giving a powerful car to someone who has never learned to drive. It would be dangerous. The same principle applies to the blessings we pray for. If we are not prepared to handle them, they could overwhelm us rather than bless us. Throughout history, we see examples of individuals who had to wait for God's perfect timing. Take Abraham and Sarah, for instance. They were promised a child, but the fulfillment of that promise did not come immediately. Sarah, in her impatience, tried to take matters into her own hands by offering Hagar to Abraham, which led to unnecessary complications. But when the time was right, God fulfilled His promise, and Isaac was born. The delay wasn't because God had forgotten them, but because He was working things out in a way that would bring about His perfect will. Another example is Joseph, who had dreams of greatness as a young man. However, his journey to leadership did not happen overnight. Instead, he faced betrayal, was sold into slavery, and was even falsely accused and imprisoned. For years, it seemed as though everything was going wrong. But in reality, God was shaping him, refining his character, and placing him in the right position. If Joseph had gone straight from being a shepherd boy to ruling Egypt, he would not have had the wisdom, patience, or leadership skills needed to fulfill his destiny. Every delay, every hardship, and every disappointment was part of God's divine preparation. And when the time was right, Joseph was elevated to a position of power, not just for his benefit, but to save an entire nation. When we pray for something, we must trust that God knows when we are ready to receive it. Sometimes we think we are prepared, but in reality, we still need growth. There are hidden lessons in the waiting period, lessons of patience, trust, humility, and dependence on God. Many people give up on their prayers simply because they don't see immediate results. They assume that God is saying no when, in fact, He is saying, not yet. If we learn to trust in His timing, we will find peace even in the waiting. God's timing is not just about us. It is also about how our blessings align with His greater plan. We are interconnected, and sometimes our answered prayers depend on other people or events falling into place. A person praying for a new job might have to wait until the right position becomes available. Someone praying for a spouse might have to wait until both individuals are fully prepared for a strong, God-centered marriage. The waiting period is not wasted time. It is a season of divine orchestration where God aligns circumstances in a way that brings about the best possible outcome. There are moments when we want to question God, wondering why others seem to receive their blessings faster than we do. But comparison can lead to frustration and doubt. Just as every tree bears fruit in its own season, our blessings come when the conditions are right. An apple tree does not try to produce fruit in winter, nor does a farmer harvest crops before they are ripe. Timing matters. If we receive something too soon, we may not appreciate it or handle it correctly. But when we wait for God's perfect timing, we are able to receive, enjoy, and sustain our blessings without unnecessary struggle. Trusting in God's timing requires faith. It means surrendering our own schedules, desires, and impatience to His greater wisdom. It means believing that even when we don't see progress, God is still working. The delays we experience are not denials, but divine preparations. Instead of becoming discouraged, we should focus on growing, learning, and strengthening our relationship with God. Go. The right time will come, and when it does, we will realize that the wait was never a waste. It was a necessary part of the journey. Before God grants us the blessings we pray for, He ensures that we are prepared to handle them. This preparation is necessary because receiving something before we are ready can lead to mishandling, failure, or even loss. Just as a builder must lay a solid foundation before constructing a tall building, God lays the foundation in our lives before elevating us to new levels. This process is often misunderstood because it comes in the form of challenges, delays, and lessons that may not seem connected to the blessings we desire. However, every trial and every experience is a tool that shapes us for the greater things ahead. Many people desire success, influence, or prosperity, but they do not always consider the responsibility that comes with it. A person who prays for leadership must first develop patience, wisdom, and the ability to handle criticism. A person who prays for financial blessings must first learn discipline, stewardship, and generosity. If God were to promote us before we are prepared, the very blessings we prayed for could become burdens. For example, someone who desires a position of authority but lacks the ability to make wise decisions could end up hurting others and themselves. The delay is not a punishment. It is preparation to ensure that when the blessing comes, we can manage it effectively and use it for good. Looking at the lives of those who have been greatly used by God, we see a common pattern of preparation before promotion. Take David, for instance. He was anointed as king while still a young shepherd boy, but he did not immediately ascend to the throne. Instead, he went through years of trials, including being pursued by King Saul, facing betrayal, and experiencing isolation. During this time, David developed the courage, humility, and faith he needed to become a righteous ruler. If he had taken the throne too soon, he would not have been the leader that Israel needed. His time in the wilderness was not wasted. It was a training ground for his future responsibilities. Another example is Moses. He grew up in Pharaoh's palace, but before he could lead the Israelites to freedom, he had to spend 40 years in the desert as a shepherd. At first glance, this might seem like a setback, but it was actually God's way of preparing him. Leading sheep through the wilderness taught him patience, endurance, and humility, qualities that he would later need to lead an entire nation. If Moses had gone straight from the palace to leading Israel, he would not have had the experience necessary to navigate the challenges ahead. His time in the desert was a period of refinement, shaping him into the leader God had called him to be. In our own lives, we often experience seasons where it feels like nothing is happening. We pray for an opportunity, a breakthrough, or a new direction, yet we find ourselves waiting. It is easy to become discouraged and wonder if God has forgotten about us. But what we do not see is that during this waiting period, God is working on our character. He is teaching us lessons, strengthening our faith, and removing the things that could hinder our success. This preparation phase is crucial because it builds the foundation for what is to come. If we try to skip this process, we may find ourselves unprepared when the opportunity finally arrives. Sometimes the preparation comes in the form of small responsibilities that seem unrelated to what we desire. A person who prays for a thriving business might first have to learn discipline by managing a small job well. A person who prays for a strong marriage might have to develop patience, selflessness, and communication skills before meeting the right partner. These small tasks may seem insignificant, but they are God's way of training us for greater things. If we are faithful with the little that is given to us, we prove that we can handle more. Many people fail to recognize this process and become frustrated when they do not see immediate results. They may even give up on their dreams or assume that God is not answering their prayers. However, those who embrace the preparation phase with the right mindset will be the ones who are ready when the promotion comes. Instead of resisting the challenges and delays, they see them as opportunities to grow. They understand that every lesson, every hardship, and every small responsibility is part of God's divine plan to prepare them for something greater. When we pray for something significant, God often tests our faith and character to ensure that we are truly ready to receive it. These tests come in various forms: difficult circumstances, unanswered prayers, moments of doubt, and situations that require patience, perseverance, and trust. And many people see these tests as obstacles, but they are actually necessary steps in our journey. God does not test us to see us fail. He tests us to strengthen us, refine our character, and prepare us for the blessings we desire. Without these tests, we might receive what we prayed for, but lack the maturity, wisdom, or strength to sustain it. Faith is easy when everything is going well. It is simple to believe in God's promises when we see progress and feel like we are moving in the right direction. However, true faith is revealed in moments of uncertainty, when we cannot see the path ahead, when doors remain closed, or when challenges seem overwhelming. These moments test whether we truly trust God, or if we only trust Him when things are going our way. Abraham's faith was tested when God asked him to leave his homeland without knowing his final destination. He obeyed, demonstrating trust in God's plan. Later, his faith was tested again when he was asked to sacrifice his son Isaac, the very son God had promised him. It was in these moments of testing that Abraham's trust in God was proven. And as a result, he became the father of many nations. Character is also tested during times of waiting and adversity. Many people pray for success, influence, or opportunities, but if their character is not strong enough, those very blessings can lead to downfall. The story of Joseph is a perfect example. He had dreams of greatness as a young man, but before those dreams could be fulfilled, he had to go through years of hardship. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Each of these challenges was a test of his integrity, patience, and trust in God. Had he lost faith, become bitter, or tried to take matters into his own hands, he might have missed his destiny. But because he remained faithful, even in the hardest times, God elevated him at the right moment. When he finally became second in command in Egypt, he was not only prepared to handle the responsibility, but also had the wisdom and humility to use his position for good. Another common test is the test of patience. When people pray for something, they often expect an immediate answer. But God's timing is not always the same as ours. Waiting can be difficult, especially when we see others receiving their blessings while we feel stuck. However, patience is a sign of trust in God. The Israelites, after being freed from slavery in Egypt, were promised a land flowing with milk and honey. But before they could enter it, they had to go through a long journey in the wilderness. Their impatience and lack of faith caused them to complain, doubt, and even desire to return to slavery. As a result, many of them did not enter the promised land. Their story serves as a reminder that how we handle waiting periods determines whether we are ready for the blessings ahead. Tests also reveal what is truly in our hearts. Sometimes people pray for something, believing that they are ready for it, but when they face challenges, their true attitudes and priorities become clear. A person who prays for financial success might face a season of lack to test whether they will remain generous and faithful. A person who prays for leadership might be placed in situations where they must prove their humility and ability to serve others. If a person only remains faithful when things are easy, it reveals that their commitment is conditional. But those who pass these tests with the right attitude show that they can be trusted with more. God's tests are not designed to discourage us, but to prepare us. Just as a teacher gives a student an exam to ensure they are ready for the next level, God allows us to go through tests to make sure we are prepared for what comes next. Each challenge, each delay, and each difficulty serves a greater purpose. Those who remain steadfast, trusting in God's plan and staying faithful in the process, will eventually see the fulfillment of their prayers. And when that time comes, they will be fully equipped to handle the blessings they once hoped for. When God is preparing us for what we prayed for, He often removes people, habits, and distractions that could hinder our growth. This process is not always easy or comfortable, but it is necessary for our transformation. Many times we hold on to things or relationships that are not meant to go with us into the next season of our lives. We may not realize it, but some connections and behaviors can prevent us from stepping fully into the purpose God has for us. Letting go is one of the hardest lessons to learn, but it is essential if we want to receive what we have been praying for. One of the ways God prepares us is by separating us from people who are not aligned with His plan for our lives. This could be friendships, relationships, or even work environments that keep us from growing. Sometimes we form attachments to people who may not have bad intentions, but are not meant to be part of our future. A person who prays for wisdom may find themselves distanced from people who encourage foolishness. A person who prays for strength may be separated from those who constantly drain their energy or discourage them. It can be painful when people leave or when relationships change. But when we trust God, we begin to understand that He is making room for something better. There are also times when God removes habits and behaviors that hold us back. If someone prays for success but has a habit of procrastination, God may place them in situations that require discipline and commitment. If someone prays for a deeper relationship with God but spends most of their time distracted, they may go through a season where those distractions are taken away. These changes may feel uncomfortable at first, but they are meant to shape us into the kind of person who can handle the blessings we desire. It is not that God is punishing us. He is refining us so that when we receive our blessings, we will be able to sustain them. Distractions are another thing that God removes when He is preparing us. Sometimes we focus on things that are not necessarily bad, but take up too much of our time and attention. Social media, entertainment, and even unnecessary commitments can keep us from growing spiritually and emotionally. When we pray for clarity or direction, we may suddenly feel the need to step away from these distractions. This is because God is creating space for us to hear His voice more clearly. Many times people ask why they feel distant from God, but the reality is that they are surrounded by noise that prevents them from listening. Letting go is never easy, especially when we do not fully understand why it is happening. It is human nature to want to hold on to what is familiar, even if it is not beneficial. However, when we trust that God's plans are greater than our own, we begin to see that every removal is actually a blessing in disguise. When Abraham was called to leave his homeland, he had to let go of everything familiar to step into God's promise. If he had stayed where he was comfortable, he would have never become the father of many nations. His willingness to let go of the past allowed him to step into a future greater than he could have imagined. Another example is Jesus' disciples. When He called them, they had to leave behind their old lives, their jobs, and in some cases, their families. This was not because their past lives were wrong, but because God had something greater for them. They had to let go of their own plans and follow His leading. If they had refused, they would have missed out on being part of something extraordinary. In the same way, when God removes things from our lives, it is because He is calling us to something higher. People often struggle with this process because they fear what they will lose. But in reality, anything God removes is replaced with something better. If He takes away a toxic relationship, He will bring people who will uplift and encourage us. If He removes a bad habit, He will replace it with strength and discipline. If He clears out distractions, He will fill that space with peace and purpose. The key is to trust that whatever He is doing is for our good. When we finally receive what we have prayed for, we will look back and realize that every change, every separation, and every challenge was necessary. The process may not have made sense at the time, but it was all part of God's plan to prepare us. Letting go is not about losing. It is about making room for something greater. Those who embrace this process with faith and patience will find themselves walking into blessings that are far beyond anything they could have imagined in life. When we pray for something, God does not simply hand it to us without preparation. Instead, He strengthens our faith through challenges, refines our character through trials, tests our patience through waiting, and removes what is not meant for our future. Every difficulty, delay, and change is not meant to break us, but to build us into the person who can handle the blessings we desire. If we truly believe that God has a plan for our lives, we must trust His process, even when it does not make sense. The hardships we endure are not signs of rejection, but of preparation. The waiting is not punishment, but a period of growth. The people, habits, and distractions that fade away are not losses, but necessary shifts to make room for something greater. When the time is right, we will step into the very things we prayed for, not as the same person who started the journey, but as someone who is ready, equipped, and capable of receiving and sustaining those blessings. So as you continue on your path, embrace the process with faith, patience, and confidence, knowing that everything is working for your good. Good luck on your journey, and may you find strength in every challenge, growth in every trial, and joy in every blessing that comes your way. Thank you